Welcome to all of you, and most especially welcome to our teachers tonight, Rabbi Dr. Alon Goshen-Gottstein, Professor Yehuda Gelman, Professor Raphael Yosp, and Dr. Dov Maimon. Baruch haba to all of you, and above all, also she is not here yet, Rabbanit Gila Rosen, who is the head of the Yakar institution in which we find ourselves. An unusual and very special place, and we are very privileged to be able to be with her here tonight. I also want to state a special welcome to Chief Rabbi Angel Kryman Brill of the Center of Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation. Baruch haba to you. I want to thank Avital Magalis and Yael Unterman and Yael Fourier for helping us out tonight and make this all possible. And also thanks to family Robert Nies, who sponsored this evening. As you probably know, this is a mutual event which is organized by several institutions. First of all, Yakar, where you find yourself tonight. Number two, by the EMIA Interface Institute, of which Dr. Alon Goshen-Gottstein is the head, and the David Cardozo Academy by somebody called Rabbi Cardozo. The panel tonight is discussing, is based on a very important book which was published several months ago. Here it is, Jewish Theology and World Religions. It will be available for those who would like to purchase it. It was edited by Dr. Goshen-Gottstein and somebody else who's here not tonight because he's in Goedslaar. It's Dr. Eugene Korn, who is the American director of the Center of Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation in Efrat, and he's also the editor of Meorot, a forum for modern Orthodox discourse. The book itself is quite a breakthrough and something very worthwhile putting your attention on and reading. First class scholarship, first of all, written by some very special people with a lot of original ideas, of which today we are in great need. We need today bold ideas, new ideas, also in our relationship to also religions, whether they are monotheistic or not monotheistic. The book exists of papers which by several people who are here tonight, not all of them. There are 25 scholars which came together several years ago in 2005 in the Scranton University of Scranton, people who are specialized in Jewish philosophy, in Jewish history, education and halakha. And it was the EMIA Interface Institute of Alon Goshen-Gottstein who brought us all together and made this possible. In the book there are 12 very important papers, and 3 of the authors tonight we have here. Dr. Alon Goshen-Gottstein himself, Professor Yehuda Gelman and Professor Raphael Yosp. But we also have two very important people tonight, and that is Dr. Dov Maimon, person sitting over here, and our Rabbanit Gila Rosen, who is the head of the Yakar Institute. Chazak Baruch to all of you. Let me tell you about the order. Gila, please. Bavakasha. About the order tonight, just that you know how we will work this. I will give a short introduction myself for a few minutes. Then Dr. Alon Goshen-Gottstein will speak in general about the whole project over here, and he will speak specifically about Hinduism. After that, Professor Yehuda Gelman will speak about Buddhism, an atheistic religion. Please take notice. Then we have Professor Raphael Yosp, who will speak about Christianity. After that, Dr. Dov Maimon, who will speak about Islam. Then we will make a break for about 15 minutes, that you can have something to drink. After that, we have a questions and answers period for the panel. And then we hope that together with probably Adon Goshen-Gottstein, Rabbanit Gila Rosen will do the closing remarks. So everybody will here have not more than 20 minutes to speak, and will try to give an overview of the main points which they have been making in their book, in this book, or in a case when they are not the authors of this book, give a presentation about the specific issues they would like to confront tonight. There is a joke which is being told about a Jew who one day decides to baptize and become a Christian. A year later he decides to become a Muslim and he baptizes into the Islam. After that he goes for Buddhism, and a little later he goes for Hinduism. And when he is asked why he does that, what is the purpose behind it, he answered like this: I hate to blow the hereafter, Olam Haba, on a technicality. And this joke, in many ways, is what this particular evening is all about. There's a lot of truths in this joke. The question about truths, about religious truths, who knows better, who doesn't know so well, and what are the attitudes of these religions to each other. We tonight will obviously focus basically about the Jewish attitude towards these religions, and hear some very new, novel insights into all this. The issue itself is complicated from many, many points of view, far beyond the evening. The moment you speak about different religions, you obviously speak about the theology of separation, where some people will believe this and also people believe that. It is also an issue of exclusiveness. The question about the chosen people, in our case, the Jewish people. And I would like here for a moment to quote a very important scholar, a German scholar, as far as I know, not Jewish, by the name of Professor Jan Assmann, who wrote very important works in this field. And one of his books is called Moses the Egyptian. And I'm going to quote from there something which I believe is an important introduction to what we are discussing tonight. Some critical remarks, but very much to the point. He writes like this: the Mosaic, Moshe Rabbeinu, distinction and separation is the great new tidings of old Yahadut, of old Jewish tradition, and in fact the great news of monotheism. Through the discovery of one universal God, the gods and idols of the others stood suddenly in a totally different light. The nations suddenly became idol worshippers. Their gods were no longer gods, just idols, made from stone or wood, lifeless metal. Until that moment, here it is, until that moment, polytheism, the concept of many idols, of many gods, had allowed and made room for every kind of God. Everybody was allowed to have his or her own God. It permitted everybody to believe that one's neighbor's God was nothing else but a replica of one's own God, depending on language and culture. In other words, what Professor Assmann is saying over here is that as long as there was a kind of religion which was polytheistic, there was actually a lot of pluralism taking place. Everybody had its place, every religion was authentic, every religion could say what it wants to say, and it depended on people to decide where they would like to fit. But once the Jewish tradition, the Torah, comes to this world, it suddenly makes a very important, crucial, but disturbing point. All these religions are wrong. All these religions are basically saying not any longer the truth, And what we have called here, what is being called by several scholars, is we are introduced here by the religious mistake concept. Religions make mistakes. All these different religions which are polytheistic are no longer correct. And pluralism is closed down. Because there's now only one belief which is the true belief, and that is the monotheistic belief. The belief in only one God. Professor Assmann continues and says that from that moment onwards we get into a lot of trouble. Because there is no space anymore for all the other religions and for all the other gods. There are now false religions and there are true religions. Then we get afterwards the concept that one specific nation, the Jewish people, considers itself to be the Am HaNivchar, the chosen people, and that creates what they call in the academic world some kind of a scandal, that somebody dares to say that we have the truth and we are the chosen people and we have discovered this monotheistic God. And continues the professor, what it also means is that the Jewish tradition basically became the victim of its own creation. Why? Because the moment it introduced the idea that there is only one God and there is only one nation called the chosen people, the Jewish people, this exclusiveness ultimately leads to the fact that other religions are going to make the same claim. Christianity now becomes exclusive and says, we are the chosen people, and pushes the Jewish tradition to the side. A little later the same thing happens with Islam. Now they are the exclusive people, and we get what is called the replacement theology. Replacing the Jewish people with other people who now claim to have the truth. They are later in history, and therefore they're more closer to the truth, and so we get into trouble. The question which obviously needs to be responded to, and I do not know to what extent we will be able to do that tonight, is this picture which is drawn by this professor correct? Is this the way how we need to look to all the differences, and that indeed, because of the Jewish tradition, we no longer have this kind of pluralistic attitude towards other traditions, because they are no longer kosher, they are no longer standing for the truth. Should we do something about this? Can we change this? And is this possible? In other words, can we overcome these differences without losing our own identity? All these matters are of the greatest importance for the time in which we live today. How do we relate to the other? How do we relate to the religions of other people who are not Jewish? Let me finish with two little observations, or better with one observation made by the Malbi, the great Malbi, one of the great commentators on Tanakh, on the whole of the Bible. In Malachi, one of the prophets, in the first chapter, Pasuk 11, we read the following, very interesting. It says like this: Ki menisrach shemesh, va'at mevo'o gadol shemi bagoyim. ובכל מקום מותר מוקש שמי ומנחה טהורה. כי גדול שמי בגויים אמר השם צבאות. I translate. From the rising of the sun to its settings, my name, meaning God's name, is great among the nations. In every place incense is offered to my name, and a pure offering for my name is great among the nations, says the Lord of hosts. Says the Malbi, the famous Malbi, like this. Hear this. From the rising sun to its setting, also all the nations are idol worshippers. Still my, that means God's name, is great among these worshippers. Because all of them know that there is a first cause, the monotheistic God, hovering over all of them, and they call him the God of gods. Only to say, they say, that it is not in according to his honor, to the honor of the monotheistic God of all gods, to deal with the low world. And therefore, he leaves the issue of running this world to his servants, who are all the idols. the sun, the moon, the stars, like the king does. And people want to give them honor so that they are able to give honor to the ultimate one. And then he continues, and all those who are offering sacrifices to the stars and to the Mazalot, this is only because they believe that all these stars and Mazalot are close to the first cause, the God, creator of heaven and earth. And these stars and Mazalot receive their strength from him. This is a remarkable statement made by the Malbim, because what he seems to say over here is that the issue of Avodah Zarah, of idol worship, is first of all more complicated than we think, and secondly, idol worship is basically a way to worship God via the stars, the moon, and all the other objects. Then the question indeed is there such a thing as a real, radical Avodah Zarah, or if everything on the end is still somehow monotheistic, because it hangs on the concept of the monotheistic God, the first source. And if that is the case, then perhaps our attitude towards these religions, whether they are partially monotheistic, fully monotheistic, or not at all monotheistic, or perhaps even atheistic, are they really not still part, after all, of the monotheistic tradition? This, I believe, is an extremely important question to ask, and in many ways it will give us an insight into these other religions, perhaps different from what we are always used